I never knew silence could be so precious until it was shattered. That morning, the countryside air was sweet, filtering through our curtains like liquid gold. My baby slept peacefully in his crib, and for once, I felt like I could breathe. You know that feeling when your body finally remembers it's allowed to exist for itself? That's where I was. Then I heard the crunch of tires on our gravel driveway. My mother-in-law Linda stood there, smirking, silhouetted against the taxi's headlights. Behind her, 4 small shadows emerged, one by one, my sister-in-law's children. 4 of them, ages 3 to 7. Sarah and I are off to Turkey until September, she announced, not asked. And you're on maternity leave after all. The way she said it, like maternity leave was some sort of vacation, not the sleepless, milk-stained marathon it really is. Before I could form words, she was already shoving the children toward me. Everything will be fine, she said, in that tone people use when they know everything will absolutely not be fine, but they've already decided it's not their problem. And just like that, she was gone. Dust trail behind the taxi, 4 bewildered children staring up at me, and my newborn, beginning to cry inside. Have you ever felt the walls of your life collapse in slow motion? Have you watched as everything you carefully built turns to sand between your fingers? The smallest one tugged at my leg. I need to pee, he whispered, his eyes wide and uncertain. I looked down at his tiny face and saw fear. Fear that I might reject him, that I might not help. I led him to the bathroom, my own baby now wailing from the bedroom. When I returned, the other 3 had already torn through the living room like a hurricane. Toys from Linda's bags were strewn across the floor, a minefield of plastic and noise. I checked the fridge, empty, of course. Linda hadn't thought about food. Why would she? In her world, women like me exist solely to clean up messes we didn't make, to nurture children who aren't ours, to smile gratefully for the privilege of being used. I tried calling my husband again. Voicemail. Always voicemail these days. Our conversations had become just another task on his to-do list, somewhere after client meetings, but before checking his fantasy football scores. The oldest one, Jack, was already climbing on furniture. The twins were screaming for their mother, and little Lily just stared at me with those eyes that seemed to ask, "Why don't you want us?" But it wasn't that I didn't want them. It's that I couldn't. God, I just couldn't handle it all. By evening, Jack developed a fever, his small body burning against my chest as I pressed cool washcloths to his forehead. His whimpers pierced me deeper than any knife could. I whispered that everything would be okay, knowing I was lying. How could everything be okay when I was drowning? The nights were endless. My own baby needing to feed every 2 hours. Jack with nightmares. The twins finding new, terrifying ways to nearly kill themselves every time I blinked. Lily's silent tears soaking her pillow as she dreamed of her mother. Did you know you can feel your sanity slipping away? It's not dramatic like in movies. There's no screaming, no throwing things against walls. It's quiet. It's the moment you realize you've been standing in the shower for 30 minutes, letting water run cold down your back, because you forgot why you were there in the first place. I checked my sister-in-law's Instagram between diaper changes and crying fits. There she was, Sarah, tanned and glowing on a Turkish beach. Best vacation ever, her caption read. Not a single mention of her children, not one word about the chaos she'd left behind. I messaged her, "I'm struggling. One of the kids is sick. I can't do this alone." Read. No reply. "Please just call. I need help." Read. Silence. Have you ever screamed into a void that you know is listening, but chooses not to hear you? 3 days bled into each other. I became a machine, feeding, cleaning, soothing, repeating. There were moments I looked at these children and felt nothing. Not love, not hate, just emptiness. And the guilt that followed was suffocating. What kind of woman feels nothing for children who need her? The kind who's been stripped of everything that makes her human, I guess. On the 4th day, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles, like bruises under my eyes. Hair I hadn't washed in days. Skin pale and lifeless. A woman I didn't recognize looking back at me. My hands trembled as I tried to brush my teeth. I dropped the toothbrush into the sink, and something in me snapped. It was such a small thing, a toothbrush clattering against porcelain, but it was everything. Every boundary crossed, every no I'd swallowed, every time I'd made myself smaller to make room for others. That's when the panic came. Not gradually, but all at once, like drowning. My heart hammered against my ribs. My lungs forgot how to work. The room tilted sideways. I stumbled over a toy car, falling to my knees as the children gathered around me with frightened eyes. And, in that moment, looking at their confused faces, I realized something that terrified me. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't be the perfect mother who handles everything thrown at her with grace and a smile. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is admit when you're broken. I called my neighbor Olivia and asked for 1 hour. Just 1 hour to breathe, to think, to remember who I was beneath the exhaustion. "Of course, Emily," she said, and I nearly wept at the simple kindness of someone saying yes to me when I needed something. As I drove away from the house, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, I felt something shift inside me, a spark igniting. The woman who had been silently drowning for days was suddenly fighting to surface. Do you know what it feels like to realize your life is not your own, that you've become a character in someone else's story? It feels like waking up in a house you don't recognize, wearing clothes that don't fit. I drove straight to Sarah's parents' house. My legs trembled as I walked to their door, but my voice didn't waver when Ellen, Sarah's mother, opened it. "Hello, Ellen. Sarah's in Turkey with my mother-in-law, and your grandchildren have been dumped. At my house, for days. I can't take care of them anymore. Please come get them today. I'm not obligated to be a free babysitter without my consent." The words hung in the air between us. Words I'd never thought I'd have the courage to say. Ellen's eyes widened, then softened with what looked like. Was it respect? She invited me in, and I told her everything. How Linda had dropped the children off without warning. How Sarah was posting beach photos while ignoring my pleas for help. How I'd been up for days, terrified and alone. We knew. "Sarah could be irresponsible," Ellen said quietly, "but not to this extent." Her husband, Tom, nodded. "We're so sorry you had to go through this." There was something about their gentle understanding that broke me more than any cruelty could have. I'd been prepared for a fight, armored against accusations. But kindness? I had no defense against that. "We'll pick up the children soon," Ellen promised. "Thank you for looking after them." Just like that. No argument, no guilt trip, just human decency. Something I'd started to believe didn't exist anymore. Hours later, the house was quiet again. Too quiet almost. I wandered through rooms picking up abandoned toys, wiping sticky fingerprints from tables. Echoes of chaos still lingered in every corner. My baby slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that had passed through our lives. I touched his soft cheek and whispered, "I won't let anyone use us again." I sat down with a pen and paper, and the words poured out like blood from a wound I'd been pressing on for too long. "Linda, next time you decide to turn me into a free babysitter, at least ask. But I won't let this happen again. I'm not your property, and I'm not here to fulfill your whims. I have my own life, my own child, and I'll decide how to spend my time." I read it over and over, half expecting to feel guilty, but all I felt was relief. The truth, finally spoken aloud, was lighter than I'd imagined. I took a picture of the letter and sent it to my husband without comment. I watched those 3 dots appear and disappear as he typed, deleted, typed again. No response came. Of course not. He was a man who lived in the spaces between words, always present in theory, absent in reality. Then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I packed a small bag, picked up my sleeping baby, and drove to my mother's house. The one place where I knew I could simply exist without explanation. When she opened the door, she didn't ask questions. She just held me while I finally allowed myself to break, truly break, in the arms of someone who had never asked me to be perfect. I slept that night, really slept, for the first time in days. No children crying, no fear keeping me half awake, just darkness and peace. Morning came, and with it, clarity. Over coffee, I told my mother everything. She listened in that way mothers do, hearing not just your words, but the silence between them. "You did the right thing, honey," she said when I finished. "You can't let people use you. You deserve better." Such a simple truth, yet one I'd forgotten, somewhere between falling in love and falling apart. My husband called the next day, starting with accusations that quickly faded when he heard my voice. Not apologetic or pleading, but calm, certain. "I'm done living by your rules," I told him. "I deserve respect and love. If you can't give me that, we're done." The silence stretched between us, longer than I thought I could bear. "I get it," he finally said. "I was wrong. I took your love for granted." Words are easy. I'd heard them before, but there was something different in his voice this time. A tremor of fear. Fear of losing me. Fear that I'd finally realized my worth. "I'm coming to you," he said. We'll talk. I didn't answer right away. I let him sit with the uncertainty, the way I'd sat with it for years. Okay, I said finally. Just that. One word. But it wasn't forgiveness. It was permission to try again. Nothing more. When I heard that Linda had returned early from her vacation, furious that I'd had the audacity to send the children away, I felt nothing. No fear. No guilt. The woman who would have trembled at her displeasure was gone. She called my husband, expecting him to put me in my place. Instead, he chose me. For the first time in our marriage, he really chose me. I'm on my wife's side, he told her. And I'm asking you, Mum, to stay out of our lives. Can you imagine how those words must have cut through her? The son she thought she owned. Suddenly a man with boundaries she couldn't cross. Linda sent accusatory messages for weeks, each one more desperate than the last. I watched them arrive, read them without emotion, and deleted them one by one. Her words no longer had power over me. We rebuilt our life in that countryside home. Not perfectly, nothing real is ever perfect, but honestly. The sunshine filtered through the same curtains, but it fell on different people. People who spoke their truth, who asked for what they needed, who understood that love without respect is just another kind of cage. Do you know what freedom tastes like? It tastes like saying no without apology. It tastes like waking up in the morning and choosing yourself first without guilt. It tastes like remembering who you were before the world told you to be smaller, quieter, more convenient. I look at my child now, growing strong and confident, and I wonder what kind of mother I would have been if I'd stayed that broken woman. Would he have learned that love means sacrifice until there's nothing left of you? That family is just another word for obligation. Instead, I get to teach him that boundaries are sacred, that no is a complete sentence, that you can love someone fiercely while still loving yourself. The home that had felt like a prison became a sanctuary again, not because the walls changed, but because I did. Because I learned that silence isn't always golden. Sometimes it's just the sound of swallowing your own worth. What would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, drowning in expectations not your own? Or would you have found your voice, even if it meant setting fire to the bridges others built to walk all over you? Sometimes the most violent act of love is the one you finally show yourself. And sometimes the deepest wounds aren't the ones others inflict on us. They're the ones we allow, again and again, because we've forgotten we deserve better. But I remember now. God, I remember.